It began on a Wednesday, and not the kind of Wednesday you remember because something good happened. The kind you remember because your stomach flips for no reason and your world tilts just a little, just enough to make you feel off balance for the rest of the day. I remember exactly what I was doing, staring at my phone, waiting for her to reply to a text I sent 2 hours earlier. Not a big deal on paper, sure. But when you've known someone long enough, the silence speaks. We were supposed to meet for dinner. I'd made a reservation, picked the place she said she liked 2 months ago but hadn't mentioned since. That's the sort of thing I do, store little comments, little preferences. That's how I love. Through details. She used to love that. Used to. I watched the minutes tick by. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called her. Straight to voicemail. A few minutes later, she texted. Work came up. Can't make it. Don't wait up. That was it. It should have been a nothing moment. But there was something about the way she wrote it. It was too sharp, too final, like she wasn't just skipping dinner, she was opting out of us. That's when I felt it. That subtle click of a puzzle piece falling out of place. And then I did something I never thought I'd do, not because I'm a saint or above suspicion, but because until that moment I didn't want to see the cracks. I opened her laptop. She never locked it. Never needed to. We didn't keep secrets. Or so I thought. At first it was innocent, checking her browser history, old messages, the usual digital debris of someone's day-to-day. Then I found a folder. Not hidden, not even cleverly named, just called Archive. I clicked it, half expecting vacation photos or a resume draft. Instead, I found a PDF. 23 pages. A scan document. A marriage license. Her name on it. But not mine. It was dated 7 years before we met. I stared at it, reread it, ran her social security number through it mentally to make sure it wasn't just someone with the same name. No. It was her. No question. Same birthdate. Same middle name. Her signature at the bottom. Her handwriting, confident and looping, like she was proud of it. There was a man's name too. And a location I'd never heard her mention. New Mexico. I clicked around more. Found an old photo album tucked inside a subfolder. She wasn't hiding it well. It was more like she'd forgotten it was there. Or maybe she never thought I'd go looking. I opened the first picture. She was smiling, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. They were at a lake. He had his arm around her. They looked like they belonged to each other. Not just in a relationship way, but in a built-a-life-together way. She was wearing a necklace I'd never seen before. Something old-fashioned, gold with a dark red stone. It stood out like it meant something. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't spike. It wasn't that kind of panic. It was the slower, more dangerous kind, the one that slips in like poison in water. You don't feel it all at once, but you know it's there. I kept looking. And it got worse. A rental agreement. 2 names. A joint checking account. A hospital bill under both their names. Then silence, no more documents after a certain date. Just nothing. It was like they vanished. Or she vanished from him. I shut the laptop slowly, not slamming it, not reacting. Because the moment you react, you set something in motion. And I wasn't ready to move yet. Not until I understood what the hell I was looking at. I needed to know if she was still in touch with him. I needed to know if she ever told me the truth about who she was. Because suddenly, our entire history felt like theater. Like I'd memorized lines for a play she stopped performing years ago. So I waited. That night, she came home late. Hair slightly damp, a new scarf around her neck. She didn't kiss me. She didn't even offer a reason. Just went upstairs, humming something under her breath. Like the evening had been entirely unremarkable. I followed her. Casually. Asked how work was. She said fine. I asked what came up. She paused just half a second. Client call ran long. You know how it is. It was the pause that gave her away. She never used to pause. I almost confronted her then, but something held me back. A voice in my head I didn't recognize. It didn't say let it go or maybe she's telling the truth. It said watch longer. She's going to make a mistake. So I kissed her on the temple, wished her good night, and left her alone in the bathroom with her makeup and her lies. She doesn't know what I found. But I'm not asking her. I'm going to find the man in the photos. Because if anyone knows who she really is, it's him. The next morning I left before she woke up. I told her I had an early meeting. I didn't. I needed air. Space. Silence. But more than anything, I needed a plan. I sat in my car for an hour outside a coffee shop, laptop open, replaying everything I saw the night before. That man's name from the marriage license echoed in my mind, Colin R. Whitmore. Not a common name. I started digging. Social media turned up nothing. No Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter. A ghost. I tried property records in New Mexico. Dead end. Then I searched court filings. Bingo. He'd filed for divorce in Santa Fe County. 6 years ago. Reason, abandonment. No contest. One filing. No response. She never even showed up. I looked up the date. It was 2 months before she met me. Let that sink in. She never told me she was married. Never said she was in another state with another man building another life. And the day he filed for divorce? She vanished from his world like smoke. No explanation, no goodbye. Just silence. I couldn't stop picturing that man. Colin. I imagined him checking his phone, wondering what he did wrong, thinking maybe she was hurt, missing, dead, anything but what she actually was, gone by choice. And I knew in that moment I had to find him. Not because I wanted to drag up his pain, but because I needed to know what she did to him. Because if she did it once, she could do it again. Maybe she already was. That night I asked her about New Mexico. Casually, like it just popped into my head. She looked up from her wine glass. Never been, she said. I nodded. Said nothing. Her eyes didn't flinch. Not even a flicker. She is so good at lying, it's terrifying. A week passed. I started noticing more. Small things. Receipts that didn't match her stories. A perfume I never smelled on her before. A new phone charger in her bag, wrong size for her phone. A hotel key card buried in her coat pocket. She must have forgotten it was there. It didn't have a name on it, just the kind you tap against a door. Discreet. I took a photo of it, tucked it back exactly where I found it, and started my real hunt. 2 days later I got a call. A blocked number. I never answer blocked calls. But this time I did. A man's voice. Is this Aaron? My throat tightened. Who's this? I think we've both been lied to. It was Colin. My chest nearly caved in. He told me he got an email, anonymous. Just a link to a Dropbox folder. Inside? Photos. Of her. Of me. Of us. Someone was feeding him breadcrumbs just like I was following my own. She told me she had no family. No friends. She said we were her second chance at life. The line went quiet for a second. Then she disappeared. I asked where he was. He said he was back in Santa Fe. But I'll come to you. If you want answers, we need to talk. I gave him a location. Neutral ground. A town about an hour from where I lived. A roadside motel. No cameras. No questions. The meeting was set for Saturday. That night she leaned over me on the couch. Smiled. Asked what I wanted to do for the weekend. I looked her in the eye. Something quiet, I said. She kissed my cheek and said she loved me. It burned like acid. Because every word out of her mouth now was a weapon. And I finally realized I'd been sleeping next to a stranger for 5 years. And the worst part? She didn't slip up. She let me believe in her. On purpose. Next stop, meeting the man she erased. I got to the motel early. Cheap, beige building just off the highway. The kind of place where nobody asks your name and they hand you the key in silence. Room 108. I left the door unlocked. I sat at the small table by the window. No music, no distractions. Just waiting. 1 hour. Then 2. I started to think maybe he'd changed his mind. Then I heard the knock. 2 short raps. He walked in like he was already used to crossing thresholds he shouldn't have to. He looked older than in the photos, his face carried time in a way mine didn't yet. Same jawline, same hard-set eyes. But tired. The kind of tired that doesn't sleep off. We stared at each other for a long second. Then he said it. She lied to you too, didn't she? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He sat down across from me and pulled a thick folder from his bag. He slid it across the table. Photos. Letters. Bank statements. Even a voicemail, transcribed. I scanned them fast, but each one cracked something loose in me. She'd done this before. Not just once. 3 times. 3 men. 3 lives. Different states. Different names. She left me in the middle of a dinner party, Colin said. Literally went upstairs to change into something more comfortable and never came back. Took her purse, her phone, and vanished. I thought she'd been kidnapped. My hands were cold. I opened one photo and saw her in a red dress, standing with another man, definitely not me, definitely not Colin. A name was scribbled on the back, Darren, Chicago. Colin said I tracked him down last year. He thought she was dead. She told him she had cancer, said goodbye, then ghosted. I laughed. Short, bitter? You're telling me she faked dying just to leave? He nodded slowly. She makes you fall for the version of her that fits whatever life she wants next. Then she burns it all and walks away clean. I looked out the window. Cars passed. People moved on with their lives. Mine had stopped somewhere around the day I found that damn folder. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. She told me once, after a couple drinks, that she feels safest when she knows nobody can trace her. Said it like it was a game. She wasn't broken. She was playing. Colin leaned in. You said you haven't confronted her yet? No. He nodded. Good. Because she's not going to tell you the truth. Not unless she has to. And even then she'll only give you the version that makes her the victim. I asked the one question I hadn't let myself say out loud. Do you think she's still doing it? He looked at me calm. If she hasn't disappeared yet, she's probably working on it. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from anger. Sharp, cutting anger. Not just at her. At myself. For letting it go on. For giving her the benefit of the doubt. For loving her with both eyes closed. I left the motel with that folder under my arm and a storm building behind my ribs. When I got home, she was in the kitchen humming to herself again. Stirring tea. Like she hadn't rewritten her name 3 times in 3 cities. Like she wasn't hiding a suitcase in the back of the closet, half-packed. I looked at her and realized I didn't know her voice anymore. Or her smile. Or her reasons. I only knew one thing. She wasn't going to leave me like the others. I was going to make her answer. I didn't confront her that night. I watched her. That's all. Watched how she moved through the house. Light on her feet, never lingering in one room for too long. She never really settled anywhere. Never really landed. That was her entire life, just a series of exits waiting for the right moment. She asked if I wanted to watch something on TV. I said no. She asked if everything was okay. I said yeah, but in that particular tone men use when their stomachs are on fire and their minds are building a case they haven't filed yet. That night, while she was asleep, I opened the closet. I found the suitcase. Bottom shelf, behind her winter coats. She'd folded everything with care. Some clothes I'd never seen. A small toiletry kit. A printed itinerary. One-way ticket Baltimore. No return. Departure, next week. Thursday. She was planning to vanish again. Quietly. Without rage, without fights, without goodbye. Just walk out the door and leave another version of herself in my bed like an empty shell. I sat in the dark hallway for over an hour. Eyes on the staircase, heart like a drum line in my ears. I thought of all the things I could say, all the ways to force the truth out of her. But the truth doesn't work on people like her unless you bend it into a blade. So I waited until morning. And then I made sure she saw the folder. I left it on the dining table, open to the photo of her with Darren in Chicago. I went outside. Sat in the car. Watched the front door through the rearview mirror. It took 10 minutes. She came out like nothing happened. Sat beside me. Smooth. Calm. Too calm. I saw the folder, she said, like she was commenting on the weather. I didn't speak. Just stared ahead. You went looking, she added. I guess I underestimated you. I turned to her. 3 men before me. 3 lives. You think I'm going to be number 4? She smiled. Smiled. You were never supposed to be anything. That landed like a punch. She turned to me fully then, crossing one leg over the other, I scanning my face like she was reading the side of a medicine bottle. I didn't plan to stay this long, she said. You weren't supposed to matter. The air left the car. You pretended to love me, I said, voice flat. No, she said. I pretended to be someone you could love. That's not the same thing. I looked at her, really looked. And saw nothing. No shame. No regret. Just control. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't begging. She was maneuvering. Who the hell are you? I asked. And then she laughed. Quiet, almost sweet. Like I'd asked her favorite color. I'm whatever I need to be to leave clean. She stepped out of the car and walked back inside like we were done. Like that conversation had been a business transaction. But we weren't done. Because now I wasn't interested in saving the marriage. I was interested in breaking the pattern. She'd left every man without warning. No trace. No consequence. She wanted to disappear? I was going to make sure this time someone followed her into the dark. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't eat. I barely moved. I sat in front of my laptop with the folder Colin gave me and printed everything twice. Once to keep safe, once to use. Because she had made it clear, this wasn't about love anymore. It was about exposure. She had a week left before her flight. 7 days before she erased me. I wasn't going to stop her from leaving. I was going to stop her from escaping. First move, I went to Haley. Her best friend. Her only friend, really. The one she always said she could trust with anything. I never liked Haley. She had that same detached coolness my wife did, like she was constantly calculating value in the people around her. But she was loyal. I knew if there was a piece missing, Haley had it. I asked her to meet for coffee. Neutral ground again. Public. Safe. She showed up 20 minutes late and gave me a long, fake hug. She's been acting strange, hasn't she? I said before even ordering. No warm-up. Haley's face didn't shift, but her voice did. Why would you say that? I slid the second copy of the folder across the table. Open to a bank statement. One that didn't match anything in our shared account. Under a different name. You ever meet this guy? Colin? Her eyes dropped to the paper. Her mouth opened, closed. Opened again. You've been sitting on this, haven't you? I asked. She didn't deny it. She told me she was in danger, Haley said finally in a voice so low I had to lean in. That he was obsessed. Controlling. She said she had to start over. That if I ever told anyone where she'd been, people could get hurt. I laughed too loudly. A few people turned around. She always says that, doesn't she? That she's the victim. That the men are the monsters. Haley blinked. So it's not true? She left him without a word, I said. And she was about to do it again. With me. She's booked a one-way flight. Already packed. Haley looked sick. I helped her get that fake ID, she whispered. Of course she did. I stood. She's going to ghost me. Like she did him. Like she'll do the next one. But I'm not letting her vanish. I left her there, stunned and useless. Second move, I reached out to Darren. The third man in the photos. The one she told she was dying. He lived in Chicago. We spoke briefly. He didn't want to talk at first, but when I said her name, he went silent. Then he said, "You too, huh?" I sent him the file. Every page. Every receipt. Every photo. 20 minutes later, he called back. I'm in. Now I had two of them. Two men she'd left, scattered and confused, finally lined up. Watching. Waiting. Third move, I asked a private investigator I used for background checks at work to look into her ticket. I wanted to know who booked it. What card? What IP address? He called back later that night. You're not going to like this, he said. I already don't like anything, I told him. Try me. She used your account. Your name. Your frequent flyer miles. I sat in the dark and stared at the ceiling. She was leaving me using my identity. And if anything went wrong, if she got flagged, if she got caught, it was my name that would take the fall. That night, she was quieter than usual. Watching me from the kitchen. I could feel her studying my movements. She knew. Not everything. But enough. She knew I wasn't blind anymore. She sat beside me on the couch and said, "You've been busy." I didn't answer. I always wondered how you'd react, she continued. If you ever found out. I used to imagine it would be explosive. Yelling. Breaking things. But this is worse. I turned to her dead cold. Good. She smiled again. The same smile as before. You think this is the first time someone tried to stop me? No, I said. But I'll be the last. She stood, walked toward the stairs. Then stopped halfway up and looked over her shoulder. Better men have tried. She disappeared into the hallway. And for the first time I realized she wasn't worried. Not because she had nothing to fear, but because she still believed she was in control. But she wasn't. Because in 48 hours, the three of us, me, Colin, and Darren, were going to rewrite her ending. The next morning, I booked a hotel under a name she wouldn't recognize 2 towns over off a forgotten stretch of highway. No security cameras. Cash only. It wasn't just for me. It was for Colin and Darren too. I needed them close. I needed eyes on every corner of her escape route. The clock was ticking, 5 days until her flight. I'd already changed the password on the frequent flyer account. Canceled the ticket. Then rebooked it with a slight twist. Same day. Different gate. Connecting flight that would take her nowhere near where she wanted to go. But she wouldn't know that until she got to the airport. I wanted to see what she'd do when her magic act failed to vanish on cue. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I met with Darren in person. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in years. He brought a photo album she'd left behind, one filled with lies. Pictures of places she said were part of her trauma healing retreats. Turns out they were just old albums she'd crashed in while ghosting one life for another. She told me she was rebuilding, he said. I didn't realize she meant rebuilding herself with a different audience. He had a voice recorder with him. One of those discreet pen-shaped ones. He said, "You need to get her talking. Don't push. Just let her explain. If she thinks you still care, she'll fill in the blanks herself." I took it. Slipped it in my coat pocket. 3 days left. When I finally came home, she was waiting at the kitchen table. No makeup. Her hair tied up like it always was on her worst days. She looked tired. But not weak. No, she was calculating. "I know you've talked to them," she said. "No pretense. No games. I know you booked the room. I know what you're trying to do." I didn't deny it. I wanted her to feel it now. That something was coming for her for once. She leaned forward. "But you still don't get it, do you?" I stayed silent. "You think this is about lies. About betrayal. But it's not. I've been surviving. Every time I leave, it's because I have to." "You want to be angry? Fine. Be angry. But don't pretend I was just playing dress up." I turned the recorder on in my pocket. Quiet. Clickless. "I gave you the best version of me I could offer," she said, her voice sharpening. "And you wasted it." I finally spoke. "You told him you were dying. You told the other one you were being stalked. And me? You just left the door open for the next story. You survived by killing people who love you." Her eyes lit up for just a second. Not with fear. With interest. "You're finally starting to see." I stepped closer. "See what?" She stood now. "That love is just another disguise. And none of you ever asked what I wanted, you just tried to keep me in place." "No," I said. We tried to know you. And you hated that more than anything. The tension hung there. Heavy. Toxic. Real. 2 days left. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She went to the guest room. She didn't even bother pretending anymore. Her bags weren't hidden anymore either. They were zipped and stacked by the door. She wanted me to see them. Like it was her signature. I listened to the recording. Her voice, cold and methodical, carving through the air with surgical cruelty. It would be enough. The next day, Colin arrived. He brought copies of the court documents. The police report he'd filed after she disappeared. The statement from her old landlord who said she'd broken her lease and vanished with half the furniture. She owed 3 months of rent. She never paid. We went over every timeline. Every escape. Then Darren arrived. 3 men. 1 table. 1 storm. All pieces finally clicking into a shape that looked a lot like justice. We don't need revenge, Colin said. We need documentation. I nodded. I already have what we need. Her words. Her lies. All of it. 1 day left. And she still didn't know we were all here. That every man she'd used and thrown away was in the same town, watching the same clock, waiting for her next step. She thought this was another clean getaway. She thought we'd stay in the past where she left us. But when she got to the airport, it wasn't going to be her new life waiting at gate B12. It was going to be us. She left the house before sunrise. No note. No goodbye. Just a trail of cold coffee in the sink and the echo of a door that didn't close gently. I followed in a separate car. I'd parked it on the next street the night before, no tracker, no tech, just old-fashioned tailing. She had a black duffel bag slung over one shoulder and that calm, floating expression she wore when she was preparing to vanish. I don't think she knew I was behind her yet. At the airport, she moved like a pro. Sunglasses. Hoodie. Boarding pass on her phone. She bypassed kiosks, avoided the center of the crowd. She'd done this before many times. That was the most chilling part. She had studied how to disappear. I waited until she got to security. Watched her scan the boarding pass I had rebooked. She didn't notice the gate had changed. Or the destination. She passed through, shoes off, laptop out, smiling politely at the TSA. Nothing to see here? I stepped away then, pulled out my phone and texted Colin and Darren. She's through. Gate 43. You know what to do. They were already inside. I walked through a different terminal. Didn't speak to anyone. Just made my way to the observation deck, high above the gates where the glass turned everyone below into ants. I stood there with my arms crossed, heart like a furnace, watching her settle near gate 43. Still so composed. Still in control. But the board didn't say Baltimore. It said connecting, Wichita. She didn't see it yet. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then she stood, walked to the screen. And stopped moving. I saw the shift in her shoulders. That microsecond collapse in posture. Her bag slipped an inch on her arm. Her head tilted like she was trying to recalibrate a world that didn't match her plan. Then she turned fast. And there was Colin. He stepped right into her path. Didn't touch her. Just stood there. Then Darren came from the opposite direction. Calm. Steady. As if he were just another traveler. Except he wasn't. I couldn't hear what they were saying. But I saw her face. First shock. Then disbelief. Then the mask cracked. Panic. She tried to walk around them. Colin blocked. Darren pulled out his phone, playing the recording of her voice, the one I had captured 2 nights ago. She froze. You don't expect to hear your own lies on loop in public. Then her eyes scanned the airport, looking for a back door, and found me up on the deck. She didn't flinch. Not quite. Just stared. Even from that distance, I could feel her thinking, racing, parsing every move she could still make. She picked up her phone. I waited. My phone buzzed. Her, what are you doing? Me, introducing you to your consequences. She stopped typing. Her, I never meant to hurt anyone. I didn't reply. Because she did mean to. Maybe not with knives, but with abandon. With detachment. With that cold, mechanical way she shed people like old coats. A security officer approached her. Not because we called them, but because she was drawing attention now. Voices were raised. Her arms gestured wildly. Passengers stepped back. Her careful choreography was unraveling. Her final performance was glitching. And that's when I walked down. Straight through the terminal. Right up to her. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said the one thing she hadn't heard yet. I loved you. Even after I knew what you were. She blinked. Hard. Once. Twice. Like the weight of that word love still had a sting. Then she whispered. You weren't supposed to find out. I nodded. You keep saying that. As if secrets are safer than truth. Behind me, Colin was recording. Darren had the documents in hand. Every name she used. Every date. Every ghosted life. And then something I didn't expect happened. She dropped her bag. Looked at me like a child caught stealing. And said, Then what happens now? I stared into her, past her voice, past her face, into that hollow room she kept locked inside. And I said, now you get to stay and watch everything fall. Security didn't detain her. She hadn't committed a crime, at least not one that could be prosecuted in an airport. But she wasn't allowed to board either. Not with the scene she caused. The gate attendant had seen enough to quietly void her altered ticket. She didn't even argue when they told her to step aside. She stood in that liminal space just outside the gate, half inside a life, half out, while Colin, Darren, and I stood in a triangle around her. Not threatening. Just present. A living wall made of truth she couldn't climb over. She looked smaller now. Not fragile, no, she was never fragile, but diminished. The edges were still sharp, but the fire behind her eyes had cooled. I offered her her bag. She didn't take it. You think you've won? She asked, quiet but venom-laced. No, I said. I think you've finally been seen. And that was the moment she cracked. Not with tears. Not with screams. But with silence. Her face dropped the last mask she had left. She sat down in one of the plastic chairs, folded her hands in her lap, and stared at the floor like a prisoner waiting for sentencing. We didn't gloat. We didn't speak. We just stood there, three men who had been rewritten by the same pen, watching the author try to rewrite herself in real time. When the moment stretched too long, Darren broke it. She told me she lost a brother in a fire when she was young, he said, voice flat. Said she couldn't stand loud noises because of it. Colin shook his head. She told me she was the only child. Her mom died when she was 12. Ovarian cancer. She said her dad was a drunk, I added. That he used to lock her outside during storms. Her voice came then, low and bitter. They were all true. We froze. All of them. Colin asked. Even the fire? She nodded slowly. But not all at once. And not to you. I gave each of you a piece because I didn't want anyone holding the whole story. It was the most honest thing she'd said in years. And in that moment I saw it, not forgiveness, not redemption, but truth finally uncloaked. She wasn't just a liar. She was a builder. Of myths. Of personas. Of lifeboats she never stayed in long enough to see sink. What happened to the real you? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small, battered leather notebook. She held it out to me like an offering. I took it. Everything's in there, she said. Not for you. Not really. For me. So I wouldn't forget who I was trying to be. I flipped it open. Names. Places. Dates. Lies, truths, and the moments in between. Each entry began the same way. This time I'll stay. She never did. She stood and walked away without a word. Not to board a plane. Not to catch a cab. Just to leave. On foot. No disguise. No story. And for the first time, I let her go. Because now she wasn't vanishing. Now she was visible. Darren left first. Then Colin. Neither asked what I planned to do with the notebook. They didn't need to. Because I already knew. I was going to mail it to every name inside it. Let her ghosts meet each other. Let her past see itself in full. The notebook felt heavier than it looked. Like the truth had mass. Like every scribbled name and falsified moment had pressed into the pages until the whole thing was bloated with rot. I kept it beside my bed for 2 nights before I opened it again. Not out of fear, out of a strange, aching respect. Because it wasn't a diary. It was a blueprint. Every page began with a version of her name. Not always the same spelling. Sometimes just initials. R, L, Maya L, L. Always followed by an origin story, where she came from, who she'd lost, what scar made her act the way she did. I recognized the building blocks. Some of them were stories she'd told me. Others were fragments Darren had mentioned. Some were new altogether. She was crafting herself like a novel. Plot points, emotional hooks, sob stories engineered with precision. And each new identity had a closing line, the exit plan. Noted in shorthand. Like battle maps. Break down. Leave mid-fight. Fake job offer. Relocate. Say you're scared. Make them protect you. Then run. It was surgical. One entry stopped me cold. The name was mine. Not just first name. Full. She had it underlined with a star. A fresh one, written in ink, not pencil. Underneath. Could have worked. Stayed too long. Starting to see. Must act fast. She had a timeline. For me. That was the part that unspooled something deep in my chest. She had timed me. Like I was a chapter she meant to close before the truth turned the page. The next morning I started compiling the mailing list. It wasn't hard. Some of the men were already named. Others only hinted at. But there were addresses. Cities. Sometimes workplaces. She was meticulous about what she left behind, but she still needed to remember. By noon I had 8 stamped envelopes. I didn't write notes. I didn't editorialize. I just photocopied the pages that matched each man. Let her words do the work. Then I mailed them. Each one felt like a lit match dropped into a cave. I didn't expect replies. Not right away. Maybe not at all. But on the fourth day, I got a call. Unknown number. Male voice. Mid-40s. Quiet. Careful. She called herself Lily when I knew her, he said. Said she worked in film restoration. We lived together for 9 months. I waited. I thought she loved me. Then one day she left a note in the microwave. Said she had to go back to where it started. I never even knew what that meant. He paused. I got your envelope. I thought it was a prank. But that handwriting. It was her. Why are you doing this? He asked finally. And I told him the truth. Because she doesn't get to erase people anymore. There was silence. Then something soft. Thank you. That was the first call. It wasn't the last. Over the next week, I heard from 4 more. Each with a variation of the same story. Different names. Different exits. But the same absence. The same emotional crater left without explanation. And then I got a letter. No return address. Just folded paper. 1 line, typed. You were right to stop me. But you should have let me keep going. No signature. But it didn't need one. I read it once. Then again. Looking for a threat. A hint of remorse. A crack in the wall. But it wasn't fear that hit me. It was that phrase, keep going. Like her trail of ghosts wasn't something she regretted. It was something she saw as unfinished. But now, the people she vanished from were talking to each other. For the first time, her victims weren't isolated. Weren't in the dark. They had names. Faces. A timeline. And her. Whole. And that, I knew, was her worst nightmare. The notebook is gone now. I burned it in a steel fire pit behind my father's old cabin, one of the only places left untouched by her fingerprints. I didn't do it out of vengeance or fear she'd come back. I did it because, for the first time in years, I didn't need the evidence. I didn't need the words. The people she broke had already begun speaking for themselves. The last man I heard from called me 3 days ago. He was older. Said he'd met her in Vermont back when she went by Clara. She claimed to be a hospice nurse. She'd moved in with him within 2 months of meeting. When she disappeared, she took a pendant that had belonged to his late wife. Never returned it. I wasn't mad, he told me. Just embarrassed. That I could be fooled like that. At my age. I told him the same thing I told the others. She picked people who believed in second chances. He laughed. Not kindly. Or people too lonely to question kindness. His words stayed with me longer than I expected. Because that's what she really fed on, not love, not romance. Loneliness. That's what we all had in common. Men with gaps in their lives, spaces she could slip into like a shadow. She never had to force her way in. We invited her. That's the part that stings the worst. And now? Now she's somewhere. Not dead. Not imprisoned. Not exposed on social media or in court. Just out there. Still a ghost. Still unfinished. But this time known. The last thing I did was send one final package. Not to her. To Haley. Inside, one photo of all 3 of us, me, Colin, and Darren, standing outside gate 43. Our arms crossed. Faces blank. A moment captured the second before everything flipped. With it I included a note. If she ever comes back, remind her, some stories do get told. I haven't heard from Haley since. That's okay. This wasn't about making her answer to the world. It was about making sure she couldn't disappear unnoticed again. She wanted to control the narrative. But you don't get to write your ending after rewriting everyone else's beginning. As for me, I don't date. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. I go on long walks. I keep a journal. Not to track lies, but to stay honest with myself. I still see her sometimes, in strangers' faces, in echoes of her voice when a woman speaks with a certain lilt. But it fades quickly now. The spell is broken. If I've learned anything, it's this. Love should not have an escape plan. And when someone fears being known more than being alone, you're not in a relationship. You're in their disappearing act. And you'll never be more than a trick in the performance. But if you ever find yourself holding the truth, don't drop it. Don't let them leave without being remembered. Because now she will be. Forever.